Alright guys, what's going on? Trout here. So we're going to go into some analysis here today about why Bitcoin has failed to get out of this 88K range. I'm going to break this all down for you guys, and it's going to be pretty obvious, and I'm going to show you that why there's been no acceptance here and what exactly is going on. We're also going to break down the SPX and why Friday acted the way it did and what the yearly setup looks like, going into the year-end setup looks like. We're going to break down a lot of stuff, but I really want to go over what's happening here with Bitcoin because it's really sending a message. So obviously Bitcoin's looked a bit rough. You know, we have that huge flush down from 126K down to 180K. Now we're hovering around 87. So we're going to take a look at liquidity here and why it's so stacked up at this 88K range. So on Bitfinex here, we can see that if we go down to the 15-minute time frame, we can see it's been range bound here since basically Thursday, and no acceptance back above this 88K level. So you can see it tried to get above it here. It's trying to get above it now. It's been trying to get it above all night, actually. Let's go down to the 5-minute time frame. So liquidity is definitely stacked above in this 88K range. You can see that this whole line here is just been getting stacked. Got stacked back here, got stacked here, got stacked here. So blue to yellow here, as you can kind of see on the color map here. Darker the color, less liquidity. Brighter the color, more liquidity. So you can see, obviously, in the last few hours here, they've been holding this range pretty tough. You can see that there's some stacks above here, as well as some fake bids below. So this is spot, right? So they're selling Bitcoin here, and they're kind of just spot holding it up below. But it's basically just market making. And the reason I say that is, on a low liquidity day like a Sunday, especially after OPEX, you're not really going to see anything. In fact, I never think you would break above this in a Sunday environment like this, or at least a Sunday night environment. You'd want to see it in regular trading hours. This is just kind of, you know, bots and algorithm kind of just bidding both ways, showing some fake kind of price manipulation, I guess. Not even manipulation, it's just algorithmic, right? They don't want to see price above, they don't want to see price too far below. But in this 88K range, so what they're going to do is they're going to flush late shorts. So if you were in the middle of this range here, like, they're going to flush just late shorts, and they're also probably going to come down and flush late longs. I expect this 88K range to hold, and at some point during this week, it's probably going to sweep down here and flush out some late longs. It might even make a depth or a dive lower into the lower 80s. It might even go into the 70s. But all they're doing right now is just liquidity is just being, you know, this is all pretty much perp driven. It's not really any real buyers. The reason I think Bitcoin is doing this as well is, you know, to big investors and big whales, you know, if you've done almost a 10x, or you pretty much have done a 10x from 116K up to 126K, the big investors, the price isn't appealing up there, right? Like retail might buy that, but smart institutions, smart whales, smart investors, no one's buying that, right? Like, that's not appeal. So I think why we're having this pullback too, and you're seeing so many big whales sell, right? You don't see a bunch of whales go off ramping 4,000 plus BTC or more at 95K, especially when prices just de-risk from 126. Like, you'd expect them to take profits higher up and not sell that low down and rush to sell, mind you. When you're rushing to sell like that, that's a cue to me at least that something's wrong, and that's been happening a lot over the last little bit, and it happened a lot a few weeks ago. No one wants to buy this, okay? Like they want to DCA in and twop in at lower prices. This mid-range chop that you have, like this is not appealing for anyone to make big trades. No one wants to build big longs here. Like, you want to see like multi-week composites of sideways movement showing a range being built out, showing bottoming technology, right? Like, or sorry, a bottoming pattern, not technology, right? Like you don't rebound off a market off one daily candle. You don't, right? Like, we can go back in time and we can look like when you're bottoming out, it's multi-weeks, right? Like, this is February through April consolidation. We can actually combine that. Boom! Look at that. It looks nice. But that's through February through April, right? That's 2 months of consolidation. And same thing back here in this, when we had that 2024 scenario, like, it was multi-month consolidation, finding a range, right? No one broke below and no one wanted to sell below. They want a price to push up. You know, you can go back in previous cycles too and see the same movement. So there's no bottoming here. Like this is not a bottom. This is nothing. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're not confident, don't even trade this. Sit in cash and wait. All right. So what I expect this to do at some point is 88K is going to hold. You know, you have your weekly VWAP here. We know the yearly value area low is here. And then if we go back over to our TPO here, you know, your value area low from November here is basically holding price down, right? Like we know all these levels and why 88K has had so much liquidity here be as resistance. So again, I think what's going to happen this week is you're probably going to see a flush lower at some point. I don't know when. That could be Monday, it could be Tuesday, it could be Friday, whatever. I think what happens here is liquidity gets grabbed from here. Late longs, late shorts, whatever. That's all going to get grabbed. And I think those late shorts that piled in down here are getting flushed out right now. And I think anyone who's trying to chase this long is also going to get flushed out. Eventually, when we go into the 70s, if we get it, or if we hold these low 80s, which I'll be honest, I don't think we do. I do think a retest of 96 is going to happen, and more specifically 96 to 98. Right? We got a yearly open here at 93. There's a lot of confluence with our rolling 365 VWAP. Our 90-day VWAP is up at 106. You know, it's not that low, but what's going to probably happen is at some point within the next few weeks, I do think a rotation somewhere here into 96 and 98 will happen. A lot of confluence there. You know, previous month value area low is up here as well. You know, they're probably going to try and make an attempt to reclaim this. You need to reclaim this 365 VWAP. If you do not get this 365 VWAP reclaimed, you're going to move lower. It's going to be the start of the bear market. In fact, I think we're already starting it. You need to reclaim this. So I do think late longs and late shorts, you know, that piled in around here, maybe piled in down here, like I do think they all get wiped out. So at some point over the next month, I think you kind of do something like this, where you fail to get above 88, you drop lower. I don't know how low we go, but I remember how I talked about 70s in the last video. You know, maybe you do something where you knock out these single prints here, these poor lows. I could see that happening. And at some point, I do think you go up and you sweep this. Right? You're going to sweep that yearly open, see if you can get a reclaim of that, and then you're going to test the 365 VWAP. At some point, you're going to get a retest in this general area. When that happens, again, you kind of just have to bid the chart, watch the chart, and know what you're looking for. It could be any day. I can't say what day it's going to happen, right? But I do think what's happening here is nothing. You got to reclaim 88 first before you're going to move higher. Do I think that happens? Probably not right now. You know, I don't actually see it happening for at least another week. If I had to guess a general time frame of when this might happen, I mean, let's just go over to the Bitcoin chart. If you guys have noticed, ever since we got the spot ETF launch, you know, Bitcoin's kind of bottomed the first 10 days of every month if it's going to do a push up. Here's in August, here's in September, here's November, March, April, September. And I think if you're going to make a push up, it's going to be somewhere within the first 3 weeks of December, because that'll kind of come into that or first 10 days of the month of when you're going to catch a bid, right? Even back here, you can see like the first week of January, you kind of got a bid, right? It's hard to say. It's hard to say when this is going to happen, but you can definitely see like it's usually the first 10 days of the month where you are going to get some sort of retest of that, right? So you basically have this whole chop frame now of it'll probably be between 88K and somewhere between this current, let's just say that, right? So you're probably going to see at some point, you know, something like this, you know, maybe a break below. Actually, let me keep it closer to December. So if you're here, you're probably going to get a sweep here, another fail retest, one more big sweep below before some sort of retest accumulation, right? That's kind of what I'm looking for. You know, it might do something just like this before doing it. You know, it could play a couple different ways, but I think the general consensus is you're going to get a sweep lower before you get a sweep higher, if that makes sense. So maybe just keep that in mind. That 88K level is crucial. And again, I don't see a break in that. So another thing we can do is we can overlay the Nasdaq. So Bitcoin has been following these pretty closely this entire cycle, right? Let's even just pull up like the weekly here. So you can see like when the Nasdaq pushes up, Bitcoin does it. Same thing here. You get consolidation, whatever. You get your dips, you get your peaks. It's been following pretty closely. And the Nasdaq, honestly, it looks really, 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 really weak right now. Right? If we hop over to the QQQ here, like the QQQ, for example. So on the daily chart, this is your bearish engulfer here. Like that's your bearish engulfer, and you've actually closed below the range now, right? Or I guess just above it, pardon me, but you've closed at the range, right? So now your thing is, can you reclaim this, or are you just kind of going to do a look above and fail and down? I'll be honest, a lot of the tech looks weak. Like Nvidia, even Nvidia couldn't catch a bid for its life last week, right? We explained why that 200 move failed and why it dropped. And even Nvidia, right? Like it's failed to get above that 200 range. And even now, like it actually closed below the lows. So, you have these wicks, I guess, but you're under this range now, like a proper confirmation flow, right? So again, is it going to do just like a thing down, or is it going to be able to catch a bid and move higher? If we look at it from a breadth perspective too, like it's trying to catch a bid, but it's also failing, and breadth's actually elevated here, and the stock's still down, or at least for that individual stock, right? So if we go back over to the Nasdaq here, breadth is actually overextended, and it looks like it wants to drop, right? Like again, this indicator we explained before, but only marks bottoms, right? Like that's your bottom, that's your bottom. It's overextended now and still dropping. And your QQQ is the same story, right? It's actually up, but it's down. Like the breadth is up, but it's still ticking down. And again, our RSI is showing major divergence, and no low has been really filled yet. So we have these just bearish divergences still, and the VIX is still elevated. The SPX isn't really done anything. SPX is the same thing. Like it's still under the bearish engulfer. It closed pretty much right at it. It bounced off of it, I guess, Friday, but we don't have any confirmation of a breakage above. We have nothing. This is just chop, and this sucks. But I'll be honest, it looks more toppy than it does, look bullish. And I'll be honest, I think you're gonna get some flushed lower. Like I think you're just going to get rejected at the middle of the range or something like that. Like you're going to do something like this, and you're going to really nuke off into Q1 of the year. I think what happens now is you kind of just get this, and you move down, and then you'll get a bounce in towards January. How that could look kind of depends. It's up to you. But some confluence to that, and we'll go over some confluence to the Friday setup I gave on my Twitter. SPY is in just negative GEX territory, right? Like this is all just negative GEX, negative inventory, barely any positive inventory for Friday, right? So we tested Friday. Let's go over to the SPY here. I called this move out perfectly. But so we bounced off the 651 level basically, right? Like to the T. It's actually 652, but you'd basically have, this is dealer long here. So this is dealer long, as well as anyone selling puts here is going to try and sell puts to try and boost the price higher, right? So when you're looking at this zone, this is a zone for actually a potential bounce. I get it's red, but what this means is that's dealer long and that's put selling area. Put selling is bullish. So if you sell puts, you're expecting price to rise, right? If you get a sign on your puts, that means price drop below. So if you get below this, yes, that's very bad. And that's why you have so much, negative gamma here, negative gamma exposure. You have the chance to sink lower, right? If you sell puts here, your next strike here is the calls at 655. That's kind of where it topped out. It was about 664.52. 664. Yeah, is that right? Let's see. Yeah, roughly 664.50, right? So anyone who bought the calls down here were in profit the minute they kind of got to 664, as long as it was early in the day and wasn't at the end of the day where you have theta decay. You see that, right? Like it doesn't look overly bullish, as well as you kind of actually closed back into this negative gamma territory. Even the Nasdaq overnight here, it's just sideways. Like, it's not really bullish. It's not really bearish. It's just sideways, right? If anything, it actually looks like it's kind of bearish in a sense, because it's failing again to break out of these Friday ranges even on the Monday overnight, and it's failing, you know, to get above that in the overnight. It means there's not really a bid there to catch. So I expect, you know, these gaps, this will get filled. I think you go and test these range lows again. What happens here, those again, like do you just come down and test it and then to fail to get above and go down lower, or do you actually get, you know, a retest of these lows and push up? It's hard to say, but again, I think it looks pretty bearish, and the VIX is still elevated. Like, all these volatility indicators are still very elevated. You know, the VIX, if you look at the one-day VIX, you know, they couldn't even sink it below the previous day lows, right? Like, it's still closed within range, and the VIX is still curling up, mind you. Like, the VIX doesn't look like it wants to go down. There's a lot of futures open for this Friday as well, and I'll be honest, if we look at the VVIX chart, I actually think she's getting ready for a break lower, and it's probably going to happen. When the VVIX divided by VIX breaks lower, I mean, you see the S&P drops, right? Like you can see when it breaks below, you get these large drops in the SPX. And I do think it's going to happen. It's just, again, it's a matter of when. I don't know the exact day or week or what. But I don't know. Like, I hate sounding like the gay bear, but I mean, you're in bearish territory. Like, you're not in a bullish environment anymore, right? Like, the SPX went from being up and up and up and up. I can actually delete these now. But again, it's just been following this pattern that's been very similar to the 90s tech algorithms. And the algorithm definitely changed on Friday. Like, there was a lot of inventory filling on Friday for the 660, or I guess the 6600 strike zone. You know, we can even see where options are pricing in for the end of the year, right? Thanks to vol signals here. Shout out Dan. So, you know, this is going to act as resistance here at 66, which it did. And then you have some net dealer long here. But again, if you break below, like if you break below that, what is that, 653, 6530 strike zone? If you break below that, man, I mean, you have some dealer hedging here, but you have definitely a bearish divergence underneath. Like, if you keep sinking below, it's gonna sink lower, right? You know, we have some resistance for sure. If you get up to 7,000 here, that's, you know, you have a pin. Like, you have dealer long, you have dealer short right at 7,000 if you even get to it. You have a lot of resistance above. The bulls definitely have it cut out for them. But it's, I don't see 7,000 by the end of the year happening. Just, I don't know. It doesn't look bullish to me. It hasn't for a while, and I think the influencers on Twitter calling for this crazy rally are wrong. I do see a bounce, because in bear markets before they start, you always get a bounce, right? But it's when that's going to happen. And I think the low gets put in at December monthly expiration. Like, I think it will be put in by the first 2 weeks of January. Okay, so whatever happens in quarter one, expect a bounce, but I think it's done by April. Like, I do think it's done by April, and I don't see us bottoming until at least October or maybe Q1 of next year. So, regardless, if you haven't taken profits, you know, I'm not one to suggest. I can't give you financial advice, but in this market that's only been up for the last 8 months, right? If you haven't taken profits by now, it's probably something you want to consider. Going into this week, you know, Tuesday, you're going to have PPI and core retail sales. If those are bad, that's probably when you're going to get the flush lowers, probably Tuesday. Thursday, market is closed, I believe, so just keep that in mind. It is Thanksgiving in the U.S. Wednesday, you get unemployment claims, durable goods. Prelim GDP, this is a big one. I would really, really watch that. If that's negative, that's probably going to spill out what's going to happen next year, right? If GDP is negative, they're thinking it's negative, and quarter one is negative, you're probably done in Q1 of next year. I think that the next half of, I think the second half of next year is very bearish, personally. And then you have PCE as well. So Wednesday's a big day and Tuesday's a big day. Monday's whatever, but I will say this, if you get no acceptance above that 6,600 level in the SPX by Monday, I think you're moving lower. Same thing with Bitcoin. If you don't get above 88 by the end of Monday, I think you're moving a lot lower. But anyways, guys, that's just my thoughts and opinions. If you guys disagree, you want to add something in, go for it. Yeah, even just looking at the daily TPO, like you might fill these single prints here for Bitcoin, and that's it.